5. The Hierophant. Because the Lord is awaiting on you all to awaken and see. George Harrison. When I was 12 years old, I went to Italy with my family. We took a boat tour to view the Cinque Terre, and on our way back to a port, a small elder Italian woman leapt to her feet and screamed, "Il Papa! Il Papa!" We looked up and saw a white helicopter above us. Improbably, it was, in fact, Pope John Paul II flying over us. The people on the boat dropped to their knees and began praying and crying in Italian. I remember feeling excited that there was a celebrity in our midst, but I had no religious or holy excitement whatsoever. We had been in the country for almost a month by that point, and I had gotten my fill of Catholicism. While I consider myself culturally Catholic, I was definitely not feeling called to reconnect with my ancestral religion, despite visiting the Pantheon, the Vatican, and the Sistine Chapel, Il Duomo, and countless smaller churches and cathedrals across the country over the weeks of our trip. In fact, I was beginning to have visceral reactions to the violence constantly seen in the Catholic art, including almost barfing in the Uffizi. However, I do think that this experience was important for my spiritual journey. It taught me that a doctrine that emphasizes violence and sacrifice is not for me. I am not denying the fact that my pagan ancestors certainly participated in ritualistic killings of human and non-human animals. That said, I have always found spiritualities, religions, and mythologies that emphasize the role of powerful women to be preferable. For example, in the same museum where I almost barfed over slaughtered children, I also saw my absolute favorite painting in person, The Birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli. Now, for a Little Mermaid-obsessed maniac like myself, this painting had everything. A gorgeous strawberry blonde emerging from the ocean on a seashell, a maternal character ready to clothe her, 2 angels blowing divine roses at her. Come on! You can't get better than that. I can't recall the first time I saw this painting, but I do remember staring at it for long stretches of time. Something about the colors, the composition, the storytelling, the aquatic nature. There was no detail I didn't obsessively dissect with my eyes. I didn't even know the myth of Venus yet, or even really realize her connection to the sky, the divine feminine, or me. I just knew that I loved her and I wanted to look just like her. Looking back, I believe that my connection to this depiction of the divine and my absolute visceral rejection of Christianity, all under the same roof and on the land where some of my most ancient ancestors rest their bones, was a sign. In my heart, I believe that the spirits and the goddess were calling to let me know that I did not have to accept the brutality of Catholic history to be spiritually engaged with my ancestors, particularly because Catholicism wasn't even our true religion and took the lives of countless humans in the pursuit of power. There is so much more in Italian culture that is more beautiful and more aligned with my values than the sins of our history. For a long time, I felt lost in my spiritual journey. In the early days of the internet, my brother shared with me a website that still exists called The Belief-O-Matic. I would take it obsessively to try to figure out what religion I might be able to join. I would often get Judaism, Reform, and desperately wanted to convert. I looked into it for a long time in my teen years. I had a lot of lovely Jewish friends who wanted to take me under their wing, but nothing ever came to pass on the official side. Next, I decided to enter my George Harrison phase and pursue Hinduism. I loved the mythology and the stories and the art so much. I connected the most with Ganesh and also with Kali. Yes, I am aware of the irony of liking those depictions of violence. But if Judaism was tricky to pursue in person, Hinduism was even dicier. I didn't know anyone who worshipped locally, and I also felt the deep guttural sense that a little white girl probably shouldn't just stomp around Hindu temples asking to be educated, despite the fact that I didn't know what cultural appropriation even was yet. Then, quite unexpectedly, my brother decided to convert to Catholicism in his 30s. I started going to Mass with him on occasion and was beginning to find things I liked about the ceremonies. I loved the incense and the candles, and while I don't always like what they depict, I am a sucker for stained glass. However, I still couldn't get past the deep physical discomfort the gory statues of the crucifixion gave me. I knew there was something I was connecting to, but this wasn't it. Eventually, I realized that everything I was enjoying about Catholicism was actually rooted in paganism. I realized that the tarot cards and garden witchery that my mother was doing wasn't scary, but was actually part of me and a part of this call. Even though it didn't offer a temple or singing songs or a homily, the Jimmy Buffett songs my mom and I sang while driving with the top down and the wishes we made to Mother Nature when we worked in the garden or cooked together were church, and they were right under my nose. Drawing the Hierophant has always felt a little confusing to me. I know he's supposed to be a pope-like figure, and I know he's supposed to represent religion and spirituality, but what does he mean? He doesn't have nearly as much of the fun, esoteric symbolism that other cards do, and his face honestly looks a little stern and unyielding. He seems popular to the dudes kneeling in front of him, but who even are those guys? The Hierophant could be a pope, or he could just be Joe Rogan, you know? Sometimes I think the Hierophant comes up when we are being asked to renegotiate the needs of our spirituality. For me, the biggest difference between the High Priestess and the Hierophant is not feminine versus masculine, but free-form versus organized. What I was craving as a young seeker of spirituality was organization for my spiritual callings, and I thought that meant religion. My mother's freewheeling witchcraft wasn't able to offer me that, which was why I sought it, but it is also my opinion that learning how to be free in our spiritual practice is one of the great gifts of the universe. What we often long for when we are seeking organization in our spirituality is community. But as George Harrison wrote, you don't need no church house. You don't need no temple. You may just need to regularly be around like-minded folks. Personally, I struggle with this myself. I have found a lot of great like-minded friends in my doctoral program, as well as other communities and sub-communities that I frequent. But I do think that there is a part of me that is still seeking a regular, consistent, in-person community connection that I have felt in theater, yoga, and other spaces, but haven't been able to recapture since 2020. I'm sure it's out there waiting for me, and I hope I find you there. How's that for Divine Feminine?